Brilliant. So, welcome to another episode of Scale Sales. Really honored to have the guest of Jean Laurent from Outbuild. Jean, to start with, if you could just give us a brief introduction to yourself and also the company that you're currently working at.
Of course, I'm Jean Laurent. I'm the head of sales for Outbuild. Outbuild is a construction scheduling and planning software. So what we did is we're designing something specific to the construction industry to provide a better focused scheduling and planning solution for the field.
Wonderful. And so, obviously, you're in a space, you're against, I know when we spoke, and obviously I said I did some engineering construction work in the past, you're in a space that has a few competitors. So, how are you sort of differentiate? What are you sort of offering to the market that's a bit different?
So the main competitors are what we call legacy competitors that have been in the market for a very long time. In our case, such as Microsoft or Oracle that provide scheduling solution. Then the gap is in our industry there is needs for scheduling solution and then needs for a planning solution. And the thing is they're all disconnected now. So a lot of companies will use something for scheduling, and then the planning side for the field is done in an Excel spreadsheet, which means that your contractual agreement with an owner is done on a solution such as Project or Primavera P6. And then everything that's happening in the field is done in Excel on sticky notes, which is a high risk for construction companies because you do not know instantly or have the information live to see if the field is going away from your contract, which leads to friction with owners, which leads to the conversation you don't want to have about you being delays or not getting ahead of time.
Definitely. And it is definitely a massive problem. I mean, as I told you when we spoke first, that I'd have contractors working on big projects in Germany. I think was building a cold store at the time, and they didn't have this in place. And they were using Primavera at the time. And then they had Excel, and stuff was just getting missed. There was, no organization. It ended up they just went fully Excel for planning and scheduling, which was a nightmare. And they became massively behind. And at the end of the day, that cost them a fortune. So something like you guys offer, obviously, is hopefully you pay for the product of getting both and then just saving time and money for them.
That's really the idea. The challenge is sometimes that because they've been using those solutions for so long, the switch is a little scary and they feel comfortable with it because they don't know that sometimes the grass could be greener with a solution that's specific to you. So there's definitely a grind as far as proving that this is worth their time and then showing them the benefits.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that'd be cool to understand is like, obviously it's a difficult sell, as you said. How are you going about sort of tackling this with clients and explaining why they should be using you guys?
Being in construction, it's a lot of show and tell. So what we do is we first start with a pretty deep discovery call to really understand their practices so that when we show them the product, we could relate to what their practices would be and what would they need to change and what would be the benefits, like really highlighting the value. Right after that, if we see that there's a fit or interest or the company is ready to make a change, we get them into free workshops. So we tell them, don't worry, we'll train you, we'll get you access to the product for 2-3 weeks for you to see. And that is usually what makes it click for them because being builders, you want to be able to manipulate the tools and being able to see. They don't quite have a lot of experience buying technology. So we try and guide them through this and say, don't worry, we'll guide you, we'll give you a taste of what it would be like. Get into the product, and then you could see for yourself all the benefits that we have told you about.
Yeah, definitely. And actually having that support of providing someone to train or to advise on how to use something is massive. I mean, there was projects I've worked in the past and I put a planner in and they're like, well, I'm the only person here who knows how to use it. And I'm having to do all of the training while also doing all the scheduling as well. So having that sort of back office support with it as well must be a huge thing for people.
It's probably the number one thing that people like the most is having that little chat box that goes to people like me that were in the industry. It doesn't, some bigger companies will go to a support services that is, just tech services. But in our case, we also help with onboarding, training, life support. There's always somebody that you could talk to that will help you get through the transition. Because again, right now, if you're using one of the other legacy solutions, you have a question, you need help, you'll go on YouTube, you'll call your boss. And then if you can't make your update because you get stuck because you don't know how to do it, then you don't make the update. Without Build, the only thing you have to do is hit that chat button, say, I have an emergency, I'm stuck, I don't know how to do it. Within a minute, you have someone on the call, and then we'll help you right away. So that's really time to value as far as making sure your teams are productive in the field and that they don't get stuck on something and then you miss an opportunity to realize that there's a delay that could impact your project and then make you lose money in the long run.
Yeah, no, definitely. Awesome. What I'd love to sort of delve into and get your perspective on is the topic of recruitment. So how are you, or how have you done in the past or at Outbuild do you go about recruitment?
So to give a bit of background, so I started with Outbuild 2 years ago and grew into the sales head of sales position and built the team. So when I started, it was just myself and the CEO in the US. They had a team already in Latin America, but we wanted to build the US team. So now we're over 30 people and we had to hire quite a lot. There's been a lot of mistakes done through it because we had to learn exactly who we are as a company and what profile do we need. And unfortunately, you can't figure it out the first way. The first thing we did is hire an agency at the time called Vendition because we were looking at SDRs. We needed people to help come in that would motivate it and make the calls and have that qualification that we needed for us to bring the sales reps into the team. As far as hiring account executive and customer success managers, because of what we do, we're looking for people that had experience in construction tech. The construction world is not easy to sell in. You have a whole new baggage to learn as far as what is construction, what is scheduling, what is planning. So on the customer success side, we hired people from the industry, a superintendent, a project manager, a PE. You'd be amazed at how many people are tired of spending 3 hours on a job site, driving back and forth and so on. So there's been a lot of interest on that end. The more challenging part has been the account executive side because there's a balance between knowing the product and the industry and being a good sales rep. And we're finding that being the good sales rep, easier for us to coach you how to use the product than the opposite, because there is some kind of acumen to being a sales representative and an account executive that, you want to get that sales, you're hungry, you have that motivation that not all construction people have grown into learning.
Yeah, 100%. I think that was some of the hardest things that we faced as recruiters is obviously a lot of ours is sales pitch. So when you're speaking to these construction guys and you're obviously giving them a sales pitch, they don't want to hear it. Actually, what they want to hear is the black and white. Okay, how is this going to help me? How are you going to actually make my life easier? Because at the end of the day, if they don't have a construction manager on the site, for example, that's what they need. That's what they want to see. They want to see a great resume. They want to see a great contractor that's just going to sort that issue as quickly as possible. I think that's the difference with the SaaS industry. It's a lot slower deal cycles, a lot slower approach. Like, this is fast. It's like, okay, cool. How quickly can you implement this? How quickly can we learn it? And how quickly can we get to actually doing the work? Because the longer we delay things, the more it costs me, the more the client's getting annoyed with me. And so it's, I imagine it's quite a speedy process you guys have to work with.
It's fairly speedy. I think what we've learned is, and you probably hear it in a lot of startups, is hire slow and fire fast because we don't have quite the opportunity to keep spending money if it's not working, because we're a pre-Series A startup at the moment. We still have a bigger-ish structure because the goal would be to get that Series A by the end of the year. But that's one advice that I got from someone. So we work with Procore and we had some mentors that are there. And I didn't pay attention to this one enough, was read that hiring guide. You need to make sure you know exactly who you want to hire and get through the process. And some of the mistakes we made were, well, that feels like the right fit, but is it the right fit? And what could we do to test people to make sure that they are capable of selling, of pitching, of learning things? So now that we'll be growing again, the goal will be to have a bit of a better process that, of course, highlights exactly the profiles we're looking for and not disregard red flags. Sometimes you see red flags and you say, oh, well, that person seems amazing. They're really motivated. That's something that also cost us to have to hire people and then realize that a couple months later, it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, for sure. And do you know what? I think that is a startup environment. I mean, as I told you, we're a startup recruitment agency. So we've made a mistake of hiring our friends and going, oh, they're going to be great, and believing in them while ignoring probably the massive red flags and then going, crap, we're probably going to we might have to let go of them now. We have had to do that. And it is part of startup. We work with tons of startups. And one thing we sit down with them very early on is go, okay, cool. Do you have a process? What is the process? Oh, okay, not really. Okay, cool. As a consultant, let's educate you on a process that we've seen work and what's successful. And if it's adopted, it's a more straightforward recruitment process. I mean, yes, okay, with a startup, you do have to be fluid and things change very rapidly of what you need and what you desire. For example, we worked with a startup recently and they were like, oh, we need a customer success person. Within the space, they did 4 interviews for a customer success person. And then they went, oh, no, we don't need that now. We need a sales engineer. This is what we need. So we just wasted potentially like 3 weeks. But actually, if we'd taken a step back and sat down with them and go, okay, cool, what's this person actually going to be doing? What do you need for them to do? We could have educated them. Actually, it's not a customer success. It's a sales engineer because of the technical support they're providing for clients. So
Yeah.
Having its processes and communication open. And that's actually one of the bonuses of working with an agency, as I'm sure you found when working with SDRs, that if they're a good agency, they'll consult you and educate you rather than just saying, oh, I have this resume, it might work.
And I think it's also learning on our side to leverage more when we work with agencies, their knowledge. Sometimes you feel like you know it all and they're just here to like put someone in your shoes.
Yeah.
But definitely help. Like we've hired, I think, 6 or 7 SDRs and we kept 3 in the end that are the performing ones that are right fit. And we've learned, okay, what are the criteria, what are the things we're looking at as far as being able to find that right person for what we do and the motivation and everything. And now we haven't used this for account executives yet. And that may be something we're looking to. Being a smaller space, being the construction tech, we have network we could try and leverage and see who could be interested, because it's nice to have someone that has soul in this space. Sometimes people come in as an account executive, think, oh, it's construction, it'll be easy. Well, it's different sale. Like you're not pitching insurance or tech, right? You're pitching to people that are on the job site wearing a hard hat. So it's a bit more of a people-based sale, which all are. But in that case, you have to drop the sales in it. Show them that you know about construction and show them that, okay, yes, you're a salesperson, but you're here to help.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, we do a lot of business in the cybersecurity space. And when we're recruiting for these startups, is the most important thing I educate people on, or hiring managers, is you need someone from a startup environment, but you also need someone who's got cybersecurity knowledge. If you're going to bring someone in early on as a sales rep, they've got to know how to talk to a CISO. They've got to understand this level of person, the way they work. With a CISO, they're super technical, they're super long-winded, they're super passionate about what they're doing. If you don't know what you're talking about, they're just going to diminish you straight away. And the same with a construction person. If you sit there going like, not really knowing how this is going to help them, then they're not going to listen to you and they're not going to want to work with you, as you said.
That kind of gets to a story of we have some of our SDRs, of course, that are hungry to become account executives. And we're trying to make it clearly transparent as far as this is the skills you need to become a successful AE. Yes, you may know how to use the CRM software. You may know the basics of the software, but when you're in a demo or in a workshop with 10 people, there's like schedulers that have been doing this for 35 years. They're going to ask you a question you've never even heard about. And if you miss any of those, you're out. Like, because they'll be, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. So that's being an AE in construction tech is an extra step, it feels like, because you really need to understand the space and what you sell. As you grow and you become, a post-series A, B companies, you have solution engineers that could come in. That gets a little easier. But until that series N, until you really start growing, we can have solution engineers. You have AEs in customer success. So that's been the interesting question when the SDRs are coming and saying, oh, I'm ready. I'm like, well, make sure you are fully ready before you want to make that switch, or we give you that opportunity, because then you get into the AE quota hitting. And if 3 months of not hitting quota, then we can't keep you at the company. So time this out smartly, work on the side to make sure that you're ready for that next step.
Yeah, for sure. You're right there in the sense of you get one chance with a client, especially on the construction side. They're not picking up the phone again to you, or they're not replying to an email to just say, I'll stuff this or go and find someone else. What I'd love to sort of understand is obviously getting the right people in place is super important. But how are you at Outbuild going about sort of retaining and keeping the staff?
What we've done is, I think, a couple things. First, we're trying to be very transparent about what our goals are, what we're trying to achieve, and include the team and have them realize what they do and how it is impacting our overall success. We had a team meeting yesterday with my sales team, and we went through deep data, the ACV, the CAC payback and everything, and understanding what you do plays into this. So that I found, and because I didn't have this opportunity before more of the company, understanding what your success does to the overall success of the company, being a small team, I think they understand what we have to go through and why we may ask them to focus on a certain ICP and not the other ones. It's not that we don't want to sell to them, is we are in a stage of company that we need to show repeatable business. The other thing is constant training. I'm trying to meet at least an hour with each of my employees now, my team members, to train them on something, because they need to be constantly learning. I assumed when I first hired the team that, okay, we'll do a month training, then you're ready, and then But there's many things that I had because I was in construction that kind of clicked, that do not click for people that are from construction, that then I realized, okay, I need to have a 1 hour weekly standing meeting. And then whether it's about features, whether it's about sales, whether it's about tech acumen and understanding, that helps them. And if sometimes like, oh, I'm busy, I can do it today, it's okay. But that shows them that you are invested in their learning and development, and not just here, go sell and figure it out.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I loved about what you said there, and it is super important for retaining staff in a startup, is having them involved. If you can get someone bought into the journey and the vision of what the company is going for, That is more powerful than anything. And it's something that when we're priming up candidates, if they say, oh yeah, I want to promote within 6 months to this and this and this, and it's all about them, they're not right for a startup environment. It should be, okay, what does the company need me to do? Where can I be of most value to this company to get them to X, Y, and Z? That's the mentality of a startup.
And that's who you want to be part of, because we give shares to all of our employees so that they're bought in, right? But sometimes you do always have that conversation about, I want to get promoted. This is the title that I want. But at the stage we're in, there is a need for promotion, or there's none. And if there's none, you can't just make up something. You know, there's 150 people company, or if you promote someone and it fails, it's okay. It's not going to impact you. So everyone matters, and they need to understand this. And the ones that are the most successful are always the ones that, okay, I'm working for the team, because post Series A, you hire and grow, and then you could say, okay, hey, what about me? I did all of those things. And I think there's also a time and place to ask, like, even for myself, if I want to go to my CEO and say, I like to get a raise, I got to get a promotion, I like to get something, there's a time and place to ask it, because you only have so many bullets in a way. And if you ask at the wrong time, when things are heated up or something, then you may waste that opportunity, or come across as, hey, that you should be focusing on your performance now, not so much on asking this, because we need you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And what I'd love to understand, I think listeners as well, it's like your journey of getting into the construction world and selling construction tech, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, of course. So you could see my name, my accent, from southern France, family of builders. So we've been stonemason, my family of like 5 generations. So I grew up on job sites. My dad would be, hey, you want money for the summer? Pick you up at 5:30, and then you'll come on job sites with me. That led me to want to study civil engineering. So I studied in France, I studied in Glasgow and in Scotland, then moved to Penn State to do construction management, and there wanted to build. So I joined a company called DPR Construction, one of the largest contractors in the US, in LA. And for 4 years, mostly built hospital projects and hospital healthcare, anything that ties to that side of it. But at Penn State, I studied lean management, like, how do you optimize processes on job sites? So I really was trying hard to implement this at DPR, and had a lot of success, with teams and so on. And that's when I was exposed to pilot. I'll build what's called Pro Planner a couple months back. And I was really passionate about, wow, you could do all those things that I'm struggling with. The product wasn't quite there, but I spent months with Franco, our CEO, just giving feedback and seeing what I would lead. And when the time was right, he raised money and was trying to bring the company into the US and made me an offer to join. But when I joined, the title was construction technologist. I didn't really know what I was building on job site for the last 4 years into tech, but no idea of what the tech world would be, or the SaaS world, or the startup world. And because I guess I was good at explaining the pain and relating with clients, I started getting good at sales, and then had to go through 2 years of intensive sales training, because it's good to talk about the product, but there's so many more things you need to learn on the structuring a team and hiring and all those things that got us to where we are now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really cool journey. And one thing I'd love to understand is, for anyone who's looking to make that similar transition to yourself, what were some of the main sort of maybe challenges you faced, or was there anything that sort of stood out to you?
I think is if you really want to get into tech coming from construction, first of all, is understand what it would be like. And there's a difference between joining a startup and joining a Procore, like an Autodesk, right? It's totally different career path in a way. Joining a startup, it's going to be a lot of figuring it out. And I thrive in this. I love, here's what we want to do, and we figure it out. Joining a bigger company, you'll still have probably what you're looking for, as far as not driving all day, not the physical labor, and you have the coaching part that most people from construction will become customer success managers. Some are account executive if you have that sales side of you. But the thing would be, study whichever you want to go for. And if it's bigger company or startup, understand what it means. Understand that you could negotiate for shares, you could negotiate for a deal, there's all those things that I didn't know. And when I get my first offer, like, oh yeah, that sounds great, I get share, I get a salary, that's amazing. And now reflecting back, sometimes like, oh, I could have negotiated a better deal. But you have to go through that experience. And I think asking other people that have done it, go on LinkedIn, you need to be present on LinkedIn, look at other people that have a construction background that are in tech, and just network. That network may lead you to get a job, that may lead you to get the next opportunity, but they'll give you that experience that I went through and could tell you, okay, look out for those couple of things to make a more successful transition.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's some really good advice. And I love you mentioned about networking. It's something that I've talked about a few times on the podcast, that a lot of people are scared to reach out to other people. They're scared to ask that question of like, okay, how did you get here? Or someone who's at the same level as you, okay, what are you doing well? And what we found is, from doing this podcast, I've probably spoken to now over 100 people for this podcast. And filmed 20 odd episodes, and people want to share their knowledge. But it's just about initiating that conversation of just asking that question of, you're either going to get, we're salespeople, we will get rejected all the time. What's the difference of you just asking someone and finding out some information?
Absolutely. I've been doing this myself. That's a good advice that my CEO had told me from the get-go is every month or every 2 weeks, talk to another sales leader and account executive, somebody that could get to. And now I make it a point. Like, okay, I don't have anyone to talk to. And I even have like an Excel spreadsheet, all the questions that I've asked, everything that I've been connecting and learning from the people. But it goes to a point where now I'm connected to the head of sales, some of the bigger construction tech startup. And I need something, I have a question or some situation that I'm faced with. I'm like, I don't know how to manage this. Message them on LinkedIn. I get an answer within 2 minutes. Yes, this is what you should do. Or no, that doesn't make sense. And that helps you because you never know everything. And especially me, I don't have 10 years of sales background in tech. And I tell the same to my rep. You should have a couple of account executive at other companies that you talk to. Share ideas. How are you successful? How is that working for you? I've been trying this, not seeing success. Do you have any experiences on this? Same for the SDRs or CS. It's important for a couple of things. You get to learn of other people's successes and failures so you don't have to repeat it. But one day, if anything happen or you want, even for us, we're constantly hiring in a way. You need to always be talking to people because somebody goes, something happens, you need to be able to bring someone in. So that helps also bring that person right away and create relationship. Or if you have anything that happens to you in your career and you get let go or something goes off, you now have an array of people that say, hey, I'm ready now. Is there any opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's some really solid advice, to be honest. And what I'd love to understand, is there anything along your journey or some one individual that has sort of shaped your style as a leader?
Yeah, a couple, I'd say. So I've had different, I think it's the manager styles that I've had. I've had two opposites. When I started, I had somebody that was a bit more my way or the highway. You're a pusher, you got to get things done. This is how I'm going to get you there. But we'll have our back anything we need. And as long as you get in the time, that's what gets you there. Then switch to another manager that was more of a, yeah, I'm supporting you, get creative, get that done. And I thrive more in this than the do what I'm telling you to do. And now I think it's what I'm trying to incline on people on my team is there's guidelines that you have to follow, but the creativity needs to be here. You need to innovate constantly. So I need you guys to come with ideas. You're the ones doing SDRs, you're the one doing AEs work. You need to, you know better what may be successful to you than me because I'm not quite in the fences again. So that was probably on the manager side, things that helped me really understand what style worked better for me. But I also had employees that were quite challenging or red flags that came up, whether it was, bad behaviors with clients, bad behaviors with other people in the team that you don't quite believe it's possible. You're like, oh, it's a one-off incident that I feel like I should have caught earlier and have those conversations. So it teaches you how to see signals, have the hard conversation right away and like correct behaviors. That also helps. So both on like the management side and the employee side, you have to learn on whether it's for your next hire and or how you want to be coaching your team.
Yeah, for sure. Is it you sort of implemented in your team or yourself for self-development, like advice on how they're going to get that knowledge up on construction, other than networking, obviously?
We've done so this year. We did like a weekly sales kickoff. So we got the entire team to LA and spend 3 days doing training, quizzes, and things that would be fun. So we'll spend a day talking about construction, and we had someone from construction giving us feedback on what they would do. That was one of our clients. So I think it needs to be a mix of, you could get training on the side. Sometimes some people need some sales training that you could get through LinkedIn. There's a great content that could be there. But personally, always constantly reminding them, there's ways you could learn on your own because no one else then you can do this and be motivated to learn new things. And then I help on the side because, and I build some training. So we have a sales training. We've been implementing Medic like most companies, but really understanding how Medic applies to Outbuild. And then we went through that training and do quizzes. Then I'm trying to make it fun because if I'm just doing a presentation for 2 hours, they just kind of snap and don't want to talk to me. Or then I do a quiz on features of the platform. Hey guys, study this. And I'm going to quiz you, and then it's going to be a spiff. You guys get a little something. So I'm trying to switch it out, but it needs to be a mix of in-person session. If you could go see clients with me, and I'll take you to get there to like learn what they're doing. Learning on your own, books. There's a lot of great books about the life on construction, or like how to be a better builder. And then there is targeted to superintendent, but that you should read to understand who you're talking to. That's the user persona side. The sales side, we have basic training, but that's somewhere some of my employees are like, yeah, there's this training on LinkedIn. I'd like to take it. 100%, go for it. It will cover it if you're motivated to like learn and share with the team because it's supposed to be team play. So there's different things we do. We don't have quite a perfect process in place. Now there's an employee that I'm trying to grow up to becoming an account executive. So I built a 4-month plan of, this is everything you need to know. This is how we're going to get you there. This is the experience you'll get through. And at that time, you'll be able to see if you could be a good account executive. But you need to know all those things.
No, for sure. No, again, I think there's some really great things. And obviously, if anyone's in the construction industry that wants to work for Outbuild, definitely reach out to Jean. I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. What I'd love to understand is a little bit about sort of obviously your leadership journey. So what are some of the main challenges you faced early on as a leader or currently facing?
I think the harder part is the people side. Getting structure, doing operational things, that's something that comes fairly easy to me because you could get your mind to it and build it. And, it's documents, it's wording, it's a framework. But the people aspect of thing is definitely the hardest part because you're a startup, you give a lot to the team that you hire. So we had to cut down our team a little bit a couple months back to restructure the company and make sure, we could be a successfully growing company and not burning too much cash. And that's hard on you. That's hard on you when you hired people and you're trying to give them that vision of the company and motivate them. And then you're like, oh, we went the wrong way. Now we got to let people go. And I think it's a mix of, to me, it was be human and of course, respect them. And the best way you could respect them is being transparent up front. So if you have rules when you hire, like especially in sales, have rules, have guidelines, and have timelines. If you say you have 3 months to hit for us, you need to have, the goal is for you to bring 20 demos met for an SDR. You have 3 months when you ramp up to hit a minimum of 15. If not, it's not going to work out. If you're an account executive and you miss your quota 3 months back to back, we're going to put you on a pit. And that helps them understand what they have to go through. So you don't have to have a hard conversation and say, oh, by the way, there was no guideline, but you're not doing well. What am I going against? This, and I think managing a startup remotely has been good because you could hire people wherever you like, but you don't quite get to see people face to face. So if there's anything going on between employees or someone not behaving the right way, you can't see it. You're on a screen, you're not in the meetings with people. And that's been the hard part of trying to do something weekly where it's not work with the team. Maybe it's a 30-minute drink or coffee or something where you can kind of see the vibe and see everyone in the same room when you talk, because you'll be able to see, oh, that person hasn't smiled in 30 minutes, something is probably off. But when you're in person, it's a lot easier to see, to pick up vibe and energy. That has been hard because coming from construction where during COVID, I think we on a job site, it was like 1,000 people. So like I was always surrounded by people and you could see and you pick that up. But now being on a computer, you could put your good face up and you don't know that something is off. So it's also be approachable. You need to be supportive, firm, because you're still a manager, but your team needs to be able to know that they could come talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's some really good advice. And it is a challenging one, the remote managing. Obviously, my first year as a leader was doing it remotely for 2 months solid. And I just hated it, to be honest. I come from like working in an office every day, and now I've got the flexibility to I do hybrid, but it does come with its challenges, especially as I think anyone early on in their career. So let's say you've got a team of SDRs, maybe they're early on, and peer learning is huge. If you can watch someone and see how someone's doing it every day, you can copy, you can mimic, and you can learn. Whereas you're sat at home, by the time you've done that call and you've made a mistake, it's already too late. As we said, you get the one chance. So that, to me, I think is the biggest challenge that I have as a leader. The amount of potential loss of clients could be high.
Yeah, it's and I think it's also letting people know, and some do it, some don't, but there's no dumb question. If ever you're struggling with something, let us know right away. I'll train you more, I'll spend more time. But a lot of people just want to figure it out on their own sometimes, which could be helpful because it's great. Always check for the answer before you go ask a question if you could find it yourself. But sometimes we had at some point 6 or 7 SDRs and a couple were struggling. Instead of going to go see the performing ones and say, hey, can you spend an hour with me and I want to see everything you're doing, I had to go and let them know to do this. I think it's skills that you build as working in a company. You can't go and knock on someone's door and say, hey, can I sit down with you? You have to make time and be even more proactive as far as what you're trying to accomplish and making sure you grow and you don't get left off.
Definitely. And what I'd love to understand is your perspective. Obviously, you're building out your team at the moment. How would you, or I suppose a better question is, what would you look for in future leaders, or how would you go about nurturing and emerging the future leaders?
I think if you want to be a good leader, there's putting your team first and putting the company first. You can't I help my reps sell deals all the time, and I never go to my CEO saying, hey, I'm the one that closed it. It's like, no, they did great. This is how it is. I'm pushing the team. But not in sales, it's hard because a lot of people are very me in sales, even sales leaders. Because the more you shine, the more you grow, and it's very money driven. But I think you motivate people more by supporting them than by putting a fire up their butt. Sometimes you need to, because there needs to be some guidelines, but if they know that you got their back and they could go to war for you, that's when you build a good skill. So it's finding a next leader, and maybe we'll get to a point where different stages of startups require different set of skills, and maybe there'll be someone that has a much better set of skills to take us from a Series A to C. And that person for us, I think, will be, you put the company first, the goals go first, explain goals very well, support your team, but be supportive but firm. There needs to be rules. And then if you could do that and be fair, then I think your team will look up to you, because you have 10 reps, 3 aren't performing, and then the one that's performing doesn't see that, hey, I'm doing great, but I'm not seeing the reward. They are not, and you're not doing anything about it. That doesn't give a good example as far as how that goes.
No, definitely. And I think what you touched on there was really important, of not being selfish as a leader. You really sometimes do have to give your team the credit. And if you've got a good manager above you, they will understand the work that you're doing. At the end of the day, you have to look at your team's success should be based on your success as well. Obviously, they're gonna make you money. They're hopefully going to get you to where you want to be in your career. So in a sense, is a lot of people have said on the podcast, is actually working for your team rather than them working for you, which is, it's for some people, I think that mentality is quite hard, because they're like, oh, the ego comes in of the, I'm the boss, you should do everything I say. But actually it should be, okay, cool. What are my team struggling with? What am I actually good at that I could make their lives easier and let them excel at what they're good at? Once you have that mentality as a leader, I think you go on and smash it, to be honest.
And exactly, you don't do anything on your own. You have a team because you need the people. If they don't wake up in the morning and hungry to get the results for you, it's not the right approach. And I think that the tougher thing to do to find a good leader is being able to have difficult conversation with your team right away when you see something is off. And it doesn't have to be like solemn and, hey, we need to talk, but it's like finding out what drives them as sales reps is probably the hardest thing to do. But once you know that, once you find this, whether it's money or title, or they want to just be like on a pedestal because they're doing great, you could kind of leverage this and say, oh, I know what drives you. I know your buttons. I'm going to keep pushing on those and helping that. Because it's not easy. You'd believe that most sales reps would want to be here just for money. A lot are here for titles. A lot of people just really care about, I want to be an AE, I want to be a senior AE, I want to be a director, just to strike egos sometimes. So it's important for people to know what the roles are, what the rules are, and also for you to find those buttons.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's super important. What I'd love to talk to go, and it's the last section of the podcast, is a little bit about work-life balance. So obviously you've been on the construction side, which I know can be mental. The working hours can be crazy. But is there anything sort of, I mean, you could talk about the construction world or where you are now, that you've sort of implemented to find some more balance with your life?
100%. Because when you in construction, you drive an hour, you get to your job site, there's things to do all day long. Like, stuff are happening on the job site. You keep busy, and your team keeps you busy, and people on the job site will keep you busy. So you don't have to quite, I need a break, I need a mental break and so on. Where while I'm here, I'm in my office 12 hours a day. That could get on you, especially if you come from a background where you're surrounded by people. Not everyone's going to be remote, but we find that a lot of tech startups now, that we don't want to spend $10,000 a month for an office. We could hire 2 SDRs instead of doing this. So the remote work makes sense. What I'd say is, whether you're an SDR and AE, the more organized your calendar is, the easier for you will be to be successful. If you need an hour block in the morning to go work out, do that. If you need 10 minutes, I'm going to go take a walk, do that. But the idea is that when you're focused, and if it's 2 or 3 hours at a time, that's go time. Take a break, go back, get a walk. But it's very important, because being an SDR and AE, you get rejected all day long. As much as you get used to it, it weighs on you and your energy levels go down. But if you have 7 demos to do that day, you can't miss out on the last 3 because you got rejected on the first 4. So how do you reset? And anyone has something different. I could go on a walk on the beach. Some people like to work out or go do something. But the more you organize and the more you know, okay, now I need a break, I'm going to be back, the more successful you'll be. Because it's be on my computer some days, and then I look up, it's 6 p.m. and I'm like totally fried. And now you have a couple of important meetings, and you're not going to be performing because you don't have time to prep. You didn't have time to do so. And for AEs, it's very important too. You have a demo, block 15 minutes before, you need to prep. You need to go on LinkedIn. You need to look at all that information. Block 15 minutes after. You need to take notes. You need to update your CRM. You need to send a good document, text the people. But if you don't allocate that time, it's demo. And then at the end, like, well, I just wasted 4 opportunities because it wasn't organized and I didn't have the energy that you need.
No, definitely. It's super important there what you said. Obviously, it's about understanding what takes you away from the working space. If you stick on a problem all day long, you're just going to stay there. Take yourself out, go and do something you like. I did it today. I was like, right, bit of a brain fart moment, couldn't get this task done that I needed to. So I just went for a walk in the sun. I was out for an hour, enjoyed the sunshine, came back and I was like, boom, I know exactly what I need to be doing, which is great. And it's about understanding what works for you. The gym is my escape. That's what I do to find balance. And when I'm not gymming, my life goes to hell and I feel rubbish. I'm not motivated or anything in life. I've got a client who lives he's very lucky. He lives right on the beach in San Francisco, and he goes surfing when he's having a moment. He's a VP of sales, grabs his surfboards, goes surfing every day. That's his escape. That's his part where he sort of focuses things. I plan my day in the shower. The shower is my time where I have the most mental clarity that I ever have in my life, because no one else can get near me. No one can talk to me. My phone, I can't touch my phone because it'll get wet. It's great. But it's about understanding what works for you and where it works.
Exactly. And there's things that these are important conversations to have with your team, because the mental balance and the balance of your life and work is important. You in sales, so you want to be angry and working a lot, right? But one of my SDRs was like, oh, I'm finding new energy now. I wake up early and I go to the gym first. I'm like, yeah, you should wake up early, go to the gym, take a cold shower, and then you'll see the next 3 hours of calls are going to go like this. But again, it's not conversations we have. Everyone is different, but I think there's tips you could give as far as, exercising, being physically healthy will help your mental state. That's 100% true. Not everyone wants to do that, but find something else. At least get some sun, get some air. Because like being again in an office, your focus lowers, and then you're like, okay, how do I get out of it? But I have so much to do, and then you don't realize that you're just not doing anything successfully. But these are, I think, conversations to have. And what I do to help sales and AEs is I try and provide them structure. So you should have a calendar that's full all day, almost like for the SDRs, and have blocks. I am going to prospect for an hour. I'm going to call for an hour, 15-minute break. I'm going to call again for an hour, LinkedIn prospecting, because that gives you structure. And like, okay, I've done my calls. I could go there and take a break, take a breather, walk your dogs. For the AEs, it's a little bit more difficult because you get booked when you get booked. But like I said, prep time, before, after, do what's right for all of your demos. And then again, take a walk, because you're going to have bigger meetings to negotiate, bigger clients to do. How do you approach a bigger client? I may need to block an entire day to just work on that bigger contract. So I think the prep is key in everything you do.
No, for sure. Prep is massive. It's something that I struggled with early on in my career, and still something I'm working on. If you saw my notepad, you'd probably have a meltdown, to be perfectly honest. It's definitely not something a planner or a scheduler. I scribble everywhere. The front of my notepad's got notes on, but it's also finding what works for you. The people look at me, and I keep all my old notepads. I know exactly what page I wrote down this piece of note about this client. It works for me. And it also, that communication you were talking about comes down to, actually, I've had managers try to change my process so many times. And I'm like, is it broken? Do I forget stuff? Do I make mistakes because of it? No. I'm like,
well, then that works.
Why change it?
As long as you have something that works for you, but you have to spend time figuring out what it is. And if there's no structure, you need to find something. I take notes. For me, it's like, I have those sticky notes because I had them on job site that I kept, and I just like pull them off and they're all over my screen. And I'm like, oh, things that I need to do, they're on the screen. So I look at them, I take it out, throw it away. And it's everything. Everybody has something different. That's for true.
No, exactly. I'm a tick list guy. So scribble, cross out, off I go. As long as I do that, I'll write numbers to organize it. What's priority 2? And it works great.
The thing that has been working and what they call block planning is, instead of having a to-do list here, I'll put 10 minutes on my calendar on when to get those done, because it blocks that time, so I'm not doing something else. And I know that I could focus on this. So that's something also that, again, works for me, may not for some other people, but you just need something.
Yeah, for sure. John, that is everything that I have for you. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom. Definitely think it's going to be super insightful for anybody in the tech industry, not just people in construction as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Oliver, for having me on, and looking forward to talking more. This was great. Thank you for the opportunity.